anti-gravity component due to the rotating mass of the fan, but that's all. They were experimented with and never put into mass production. In the 50s and so on. So, back to some almost tabloid reports about Kugelblitzes, about strange fireballs chasing enemy bomber formations over the skies of Germany. They were literally glowing like Christmas tree ornaments. They would dash at incredible speed, stop at a time, come back, chase the plane. At the beginning they were chasing the planes. Later on the planes started experiencing electrical malfunctioning and terminating the engines were cutting out. Only after the craft went away, the engines would restart. Some of the bombers got out of the dive, others crashed. Later on, bombers were fired by shooting projectiles, by shooting explosive gases in front of the bomber, so that when the bomber flies through the cloud of gas, it will be sucked by the engines and make their carburetors explode and catch fire. Renato Vesco talks about 20 such accounts of flying saucer attacks over enemy bomber formations with devastating results. One pass and 3 bombers were falling down in flames. Just one pass. Basically, the saucers were flying so fast, the bombers were sitting ducks for them. So I started investigating this rumor about German flying saucers, and I discovered a long list of newspaper accounts from Germany, which are impossible to find here in this country, through a good friend of mine who runs the German research projects, and I'm greatly indebted to him. And we have a drawing of the first German craft that I ever saw in my life. Other articles about Wunderwaffen, and here we see Untertassen. This is a flying saucer, for the first time mentioned.
Is that what they call them in German? Untertassen?
Yeah, under the teapot,
Okay.
under the cup, under couplings, whatever. That's in the 50s. The best source that appeared through Virgil Armstrong in the UFO community in the country is the article from the Neue Zeitalter from August the 20, 1966, impossible to find in this country, where they list not one but 3 models of saucers. The Schriever, the first type, 4142, that was making 2,000 kilometers an hour. The second type, this twice the speed of sound. The second type, which had a much more powerful Walter rocket engine. Walter roared. The Walter engine was propelling also the Messerschmitt 163. The same engines they use for the airplanes, they use for the saucers and vice versa. And then this is a turbojet-powered Alonso Miete Schriever joint project, this first operational fighters interceptor saucer in the world. Incredible stuff. I mean, they were reaching twice the speed of sound. A little bit more serious publication here, the Stern magazine, the Spiegel magazine from 30th of March 1950 has a very large article about German designs. They give the dimensions of the craft, 14 meters diameter, about 5 feet tall. This is as big as a 5-story building in diameter, powered by 3 rocket engines that were spinning this giant, it's kind of a giant fan blade, a giant propeller blade, with propellers, pitchable propellers, and 2 more rocket engines pushing the craft forward. By spinning the fuel tanks, they were negating their mass too. So basically the fuel was weighing nothing. This craft would fly at 600 RPMs in normal horizontal speed, or 1600 RPMs at takeoff, landing, or high G maneuvers. It's very important that we don't see any seat belts here, or even any seats. The guy just standing in the room working the controls. It's a very important detail from saucer physics that in order for the saucer to fly, you have to forget about the gravitational mass. It disappears, and that's why the saucer lives vertical. But the gravitational mass is equivalent to the inertial mass according to Einstein. And because we have rotation with very slow speeds, way beyond the speed of light, we can get by with high school physics. We don't need the complicated relative stuff of Einstein. So if the gravitational mass disappears, and if it's equivalent to the inertial mass according to Einstein, then the inertial mass will disappear too. What does this mean? It means that you won't feel any G's, any jolts, any jerks, and that's exactly what the contractors say. They climb in the saucer, and they get bored at the end and say, are we going to fly or are we going to sit here forever? And when they take them to the window, they see that they are already over the Persian Gulf. This is a real story of a Los Angeles newspaper editor that was taken on a demo saucer flight by a government agent, government saucer, demo saucer flight over the Gulf War, over the Persian Gulf, during the war, I think, in a craft that he didn't feel anything. Only after he was taken to the window and they saw the Persian Gulf underneath, they realized that actually they did quite some flying in about 2-3 minutes. The most one, I mean, it's like sitting on your living room floor. You don't even feel the quakes. You don't feel anything inside the saucer. This is very important because this is one of the biggest lines of the government debunkers. Nah, aliens cannot come here. How the hell are they going to withstand this tremendous G-force? Maybe these are unmanned observational devices. Human forms cannot withstand these tremendous G-force. There is no G-force. It's the saucer creates its own inertial reference system, its own coordinate system. It detaches itself from the inertial system of planet Earth and ceases to experience these these G-forces, inertial forces. I mean, one would be amazed at the important details that can be squeezed out of a drawing made by an artist who was maybe an engineer, maybe an artist. He was told by an engineer how to do it, probably, by some of the witnesses. But it's amazing how much detail can be found in these. When these engines were spinning around the craft, they were creating a sizable anti-gravity component because they were quite far away from the body, so they had a substantial flywheel effect, which explains the incredible capabilities of this helicopter. It was raising vertically with 160 kilometers an hour. This is faster than a speeding train. No helicopter can raise vertically that fast, even these days. And it was flying horizontally almost at the speed of sound, 960 kilometers. Only the Black Project helicopters with anti-gravity assists can approach or match the speed nowadays. Not a single helicopter was able to do that in 50 years after the Germans flew. This is the Focke-Wulf's Triebflugelflugzeug built at the Wiener Neustadt factory. I think the reason for this incredible capability is the fact that a lot of the weight of the craft was negated through the anti-gravity lifting effect. These are photographs of the Foo Fighters attacking enemy bomber formations or over the airfield. More newspaper articles. Welt am Sonntag, April 53, had this drawing and an interview by an engineer, the survivor of the project. The first saucer flew in Prague. Now this is a debunking article because for 40 years the story has been that, well, the first saucer flew in Prague a week before the Russians entered, and then the Russians captured it. Ergo, if you want to talk about saucers, go ask the Russians. Don't bother us because the only saucer was captured by the Russians. This is a cover story, basically a debunking story planted by the intelligence services. These saucers lifted up in the early 40s, not in 45. And also they have airbrushed the engines that were spinning the saucer so as not to allow you to understand how the hell it flies. Because if you see the engines there mounted tangentially, you'll see, they're not pushing engines to push it forward. The only thing they would do is spin the saucer. Well, again, if it's spinning, then maybe you'll figure out on your own that spinning creates anti-gravity, as we did in the previous tape. That's why all these engines were airbrushed here. Similar craft with ducted fan craft.